Quakers, I've been working at the bakery. Moving like a pioneer, I'm jumping off the balcony. Feel this like a warrior, I'm working on my...
And we welcome you back to the Thundercast. We have another returning guest, Greg Rakestraw. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. All right, so football season has started. What were your biggest takeaways from the Brownsburg Lawrence North game?
Brownsburg probably a little farther along than Lawrence North. Both teams had some question marks defensively. LN, I just remember that. This is the front of my brain, had 4 returning starters. I'm not sure Brownsburg was very different. Maybe the ones they had get your attention a little bit more in terms of Dami Sawumi that's headed to Missouri and Chancellor Adams that's heading to Bowling Green and some of the guys they had at linebacker. I thought that Brownsburg had overall maybe more returning experience than Lawrence North did. Some of that is simply the twos, I think, played a little bit more for Brownsburg defensively than maybe Lawrence North did. And the other thing is, too, is that, in a game that, and understandably so, was so much about the star power of the wide receivers and both those guys going to Indiana University and Brandon Sharp and Monch and Sales. It was Brownsburg's ability to run the football. Sharp had 4 catches, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So credit him for making impact plays, when he had the opportunity. But, Nick, the story of that game was that LN wasn't able to continuously stop Brownsburg running the football. They kind of slowed him down a bit in the second quarter, and when they did, that allowed them to go from 14-6 down to 19-14 up at halftime, but could not slow them down in half number 2. Well over 300 yards rushing on the day for Brownsburg. Brady Lewis had 220 yards on 34 carries and didn't touch the football in the fourth quarter. So if you're Lawrence North, you'll play many similar teams like that in terms of MIC play, but probably filing away that maybe you see the Bulldogs again come regional time on around November the 13th.
I was at the Mooresville game that week, and I was keeping track of that Brownsburg game, and what I did that night, what I did was I just ended up just watching some highlights of it, and I saw Brownsburg's run game being able to be good against Lawrence North's defense.
And part of that too is I think Lawrence North, they had this issue a little bit last year. Nick, a little bit undersized, kind of relying on speed from a defensive standpoint, even though of LN's returners, a couple of those guys, Mekhi Redwine comes to mind, that was up front. Let's also just reference simply how good Brownsburg's offensive line has been during this 2-year run, to back-to-back state championships led by Nick Vicrumba, who's heading to play at Kansas next year. Now, he did get hurt in the game. So hoping that it's a quick recovery for him. He doesn't miss a whole lot of time. Haven't heard one way or the other yet what his status is going to be going forward. But in addition to how good the running backs were, obviously the guys up front paved the road for those guys to get the job done.
So then about also that game. So what should fans look forward? What should fans look forward to this season, for both teams?
Again, for Lawrence North, maybe their record is not going to be as impressive as it has been in years gone by, just because of how good their schedule is going to be. Carmel is back on the schedule. They haven't played the last couple of years. LN hosts them in week 5. LN also hosts Center Grove. That's in week number 8. They get to play Ben Davis at Lucas Oil Stadium at week 6. Week 7 is Warren. So let me again repeat that. They will play in 4 successive weeks: Carmel, Ben Davis, Warren Central, Center Grove. Welcome to life in the MIC. Then, of course, LN also has this massive game every year with Lawrence Central. The last 2 years was week 1 of the season. This year, it's back to kind of where it was when it was an 18 MIC, and they were playing, the first conference week of the season. So that game comes up a couple of weeks from now. So I think LN long-term is going to be fine. When you have players like Sales and Zay Moore and Darian Prather, you'll get things figured out. They're going to be okay long-term. The other big deal for Lawrence North is that their sectional looks different for a 3rd consecutive year. Cathedral was in that group for many years. They're now back in 5A. Decatur Central was in that group last year, and they ended up winning the sectional last year. Now they're in sectional 7. So it is an all-mixed sectional that is Pike, LN, LC, and North Central. And I would say, frankly, LN would be the favorite of that group. But again, having called LNLC in the sectional last year and seen LC win on the final play of the game, in frankly crazy fashion with a fumble recovery in the end zone. Of all the rivalries I see, Nick, the one that is the ultimate cliche of you have no idea what's going to happen when the two teams play each other is Lawrence Central and Lawrence North. So we'll probably have a better idea on a sectional favorite for LN after that LC game a couple of weeks from now. As far as Brownsburg is concerned, I'm not sure if many people quote Ric Flair on your podcast very often, but to be the man, you got to beat the man, and nobody's beaten the man yet. Nobody beat Brownsburg last year. They're going to play a national level team in Raven Gap, Georgia, coming up this week. If they lose that one, it's kind of like when Ben Davis got beat by IMG in 23. All right, big deal. How are you doing against teams from the state of Indiana? I don't think that the HCC has the depth that the MIC does this year. So really kind of after you get past this national level game, I think for Brownsburg, it's your rivalry game against Avon and then the big game against Westfield. If I remember right, that's week 6 that those two schools play each other. So, Brownsburg probably maybe has a better team in their section than we originally thought. Ben Davis has been very impressive in terms of beating Cathedral, and they really competed well with Westfield from all I've heard, from the scrimmage week back on August the 14th. So I would still think those two teams would have a collision course in terms of the regional round, but it's early in the season, Nick. You just never know how things might play out.
Yeah, definitely. Just like last year, because because it's like you said, like Lawrence Central beat Lawrence North last year in sectionals, and Lawrence North was the favorite, and it's way too early. How was the atmosphere there, like at Lawrence North?
Absolutely amazing. So it was officially a sellout, and the atmosphere was great. And we've seen, because of our relationship with the MIC, with ISC, this is our 8th year of focusing on the MIC in terms of football. And we get to branch out in basketball a little bit more, but football playing once a night, we kind of pick our lane, and it's those schools in the MIC that we're watching. The first time that LN beat Center Grove a handful of years ago really stands out to me. That's kind of when LN said, all right, hey, we're here. This is something different in terms of their football program. But to have that game be completely sold out, it was tremendous to watch. So heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I did not write this question down, but I'm asking you this because I just now want to know. So where are you going to be for week 2 this week?
Sure. So HSE and North Central. So a little bit different. And it should be competitive. Hamilton Southeastern, I think we were all stunned. Not that they lost at Carroll of Fort Wayne, because Carroll of Fort Wayne might be the best team in 6A outside of the Metro Indy area this year. But the fact that it was as one-sided as it was, Carroll led 40-0 at one point in time in that game. HSE played a young quarterback in Deacon Johnson last year. He's still young this year too, but he has a year of experience, or at least some experience from last year under his belt. And for North Central, they made strides offensively last year. Defensively, the line of scrimmage was still a problem for them. Well, they outscored Brebeuf 42-37, and Brebeuf is a good 4A team. That's a completely different level from what North Central is going to face the rest of the season with HSE and then their mixed schedule, coming up after that. So Chase Grove is outstanding. I think he's had interest from 22 different colleges, and I think all of them at the Division I level. He is a junior as the quarterback at North Central. So it might be a bit of a track meet, I think, coming up on Friday night. And the week 2 slate probably doesn't have the number of heavy hitting matchups that we had in week number 1. But I think the game I've got coming up on Friday should be a really good one.
Yeah. So then what other games are you looking forward to this year?
Sure. And so, I'll rattle through my television schedule pretty quickly. Carmel and Center Grove get back together for the Copper Kettle matchup. That is week number 3. I've been fortunate enough to broadcast the Ben Davis Warren Central games so many times over the years. Those teams have played each other every year dating back to the 30s. So it's wonderful to see it. And frankly, I joked about this last week, Nick. If you said there were, a couple of big winners in 6A, Ben Davis and Warren Central getting somewhat surprise wins. Think about that. Ben Davis and Warren Central, getting somewhat of surprise wins. It's not a surprise when those two teams win. I'll have them in week number 5. Week 7 of Warren Central and Lawrence North. Week 8 of LN and Center Grove. I'm fortunate to get to do a game every Friday night, but those are probably the regular season matchups that maybe I've circled or highlighted a little bit more than others that I get to do so far this year.
So what's going to be coming up like later in this one, but I'm going to be mentioning it now. But so what I'm doing this year what I'm doing now this year, like for football, basketball, and I think I might do it for baseball, but I'm actually covering 25 different teams. But I'm not covering all the teams one by one. But I'll be doing it like in a solo podcast myself, and I'll be talking about them. And I have all kinds of teams, and I made the decision like this week. I just made the decision this week, like for basketball, like instead of covering like all of the mid-state, like I'm actually going to be covering like all the HCC. So I have all 8 HCC teams that I'm covering for basketball, which would be fun. But back to the football one. What were your thoughts on the Ben Davis Cathedral game?
A little bit of surprise, just because I think the general concept on Ben Davis was a little bit down. Obviously, brand new coach, made the switch from Russ Mann to Brett Cooper. They did play a young quarterback most of last year, and they have him back. But again, against the better competition, Ben Davis was not all that competitive last year, frankly, which is rare to say about BD. So is Cathedral probably as good as that Big Six that we've kind of alluded to in 6? Probably not. Is Cathedral maybe still a top 12 or 13 team in the state? Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really big win for Ben Davis to get that game on Friday night, especially when you've got a brand new head coach and Coach Cooper, who was named the Indianapolis Colts head coach of the week in honor of Ben Davis's big win.
Yeah. Okay. So this next question, is for 5A. But what are your thoughts on New Pal this year? Like, do you think
New Pal's phenomenal? You know, they beat an Illinois State champ out of Wheaton coming up, and frankly, they have not had the most taxing of schedules over the years, and it hasn't bothered them. It hasn't affected what they have done from a postseason standpoint at all. Nick, it's unique in that they're playing a 6-game league schedule this year, a 6-team league schedule, which creates some openings in their schedule. So they have picked up the pace with that game on Friday night. They're going to play East Central, who's obviously kind of like New Pal, both a 4A and 5A powerhouse, depending on what classification they're in. Ron Colley appears on their schedule this year. And I mentioned IMG, you know, again, the most national of teams. Well, they're coming up here to play New Pal later in the year as well. So we will learn a lot about New Pal, but I think they're the clear favorite in 5A. Now, the team that I think has the best chance to beat them would be Cathedral. And so you kind of get the feeling they're going to see each other at some point in time during their postseason run. But I think New Pal is head and shoulders the favorite in 5A, which would then land them, as long as they win the regional round, they would be in 6A for the first time next year.
Yeah, definitely. Now I'm going to go back to what you said. Now I'm going to go back like to one of your quotes. Like a couple weeks ago. Back at one of the quotes that you said, like on the podcast with with Dominic Miranda, New Pal should be in 6A. Like New Pal has the 6A talent, like something like that. I don't remember the full quote, but you said something about New Pal in 6A.
Basically, they are bound for 6A. This is kind of the moment I think a lot of folks in that town have been waiting for. Here's their opportunity, and obviously, you know, they have played in the largest classification in other sports. You know, they've kind of oscillated between 3A and 4A from an enrollment standpoint. You know, basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, etc. So their athletes have experience with that, and they're going to be in 4A in the 4-class sports this year. So for their kids, this is not new to them. They've played some 6A competition. For example, they played Center Grove in a 2-year non-conference set a handful of years ago. So it's not completely foreign to them, but I think everybody there knows that's the likely landing spot for that program in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the next question is, in your opinion, who do you think will be in the state championship for all the classes?
Honestly, so much of my focus right now is 6A. That I can give you maybe a couple of examples. I'm not sure I give you all 6 classes all the way through.
Yeah, that's
and again, I think in 6A, there are 6 teams that I view as maybe being different than everybody else. Ben Davis and Carroll certainly kind of are on my radar and have my attention. But the Super 6 would be the top 2 from the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. That would be Brownsburg and Westfield. And then the reunified MIC, the Big 4 of Warren, LN, Center Grove, and Carmel. Carmel and Westfield go north. Brownsburg and Center Grove and LN and Warren are all south. Uniquely, Brownsburg, LN, Warren, and Center Grove are all in different sectionals. That is not the case for Carmel and Westfield. They would see each other either the first week or the second week in the same sectional of the 6A tournament. But I would be surprised at this point, Nick, if any of the 6A finalists come from outside of that group of 6 that we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Now I can say that that's possible because of baseball. Like I can give baseball. I can give you an example from baseball. Like from the Class 4A state championship game, like from a couple years ago. Valparaiso versus Evansville North. Like Evansville North was not the favorite like to make it to state that year, and they did. They beat Powerhouse Center Grove, and talk about another team we need to talk about this year from baseball. Bloomington South. Bloomington South just made state. It just made state in baseball, which honestly to me is a huge thing for them, because honestly I was not expecting Bloomington South to represent 4A South in baseball.
In baseball, Nick, the Indianapolis dominant tends to be a lot less. And we're kind of in a period from a basketball standpoint where obviously you saw Jeffersonville break through a couple of years ago and win the state championship. Crown Point's this far away from doing it last year. And in basketball, I think there are 5 great teams in 4A heading into it. Carmel Fishers Pike, Homestead out of the north, New Albany out of the far south. I think any of those teams, could be potential championship teams. And again, Carmel and Fishers go north, Pike would go south in terms of how you split that. And we'll see any other transfers or moves or things like that that could potentially, change that up. Baseball is a completely different argument.
Yeah.
Baseball, because it is so much of how good is your pitching, and the talent tends to get dispersed a bit more in baseball. There is an intimidation factor when it comes to the athleticism of football and basketball facing the Indianapolis area teams that just doesn't exist, I think, in baseball. So baseball is unique in that front. In football, typically the Central Indiana teams tend to have the advantage.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So then the next question is, so then the next question I have for you: what should fans expect from the level of competitiveness this year?
I think this is the most number of great teams we've had in the 6A classification, where I can't point to a definitive favorite. Again, if you want to talk about Brownsburg is the favorite because they're the 2-time defending state champs, and I think they've got 6 Division I guys on their roster. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I got no qualms with that. But again, this is the most number of teams that I could say, hey, I see a path for this team to potentially be in a state championship game or win a state championship game. So, I'm excited about every season, Nick. I am as excited as I think I have been since the formation of 6A. I think it's the single biggest number of really good teams we've had since classification began about 13, 14 years ago.
So now let's take a step away from football for a bit. And what are your thoughts on the 4A volleyball this year?
To be honest with you, I haven't taken a look at volleyball yet. My focus has been football, so that's what has my attention right now.
Yeah, definitely. Now, sorry.
It's okay.
But the thing I've noticed, like with volleyball, so in my opinion, like it's the same three teams, like in the top three, like from last year: Carroll, Westfield, Plainfield, top three. Top three.
Well, obviously, Carroll and Plainfield were the two teams that played each other in the state championship last year. Plainfield returns a lot. Carroll graduated a lot off that team. You've got Ron Conley that's playing up from 3 after being back-to-back state champs, but graduated an amazing senior class. And never sleep on Yorktown. Yorktown is not by choice, but by success, like permanently in 4A at this point, despite the fact that they're a 3A school, because they carry on the legacy of Munciana and Delaware County volleyball as far as that is concerned. I know that Westfield is really good. Hamilton Southeastern's been tremendous. Yeah. So I'd say, a lot of the usual suspects in terms of 4A. Yeah. But again, I'll focus out on that as we get closer to the state championship.
Now the last thing I will mention about that. Now I know you probably didn't see this, but Plainfield opened up the season at Fort Wayne Carroll, playing Carroll and Westfield like in a 3-team like round robin, and Plainfield showed up against both teams.
Good.
So it's gonna be different. And I was at the Plainfield game, I was at Plainfield Martinsville last night for volleyball. Plainfield has a brand new gym court this year.
Oh, cool!
And very good. And the main reason why they do is because someone working the pool left the pool filler on, so it flooded the main gym and got everything soaked. So they had
it wouldn't be the first time that, to quote Bull Durham, we've had ourselves a natural disaster. Floodwaters or pool waters or broken water mains are a reason a lot of new gym floors happen around the state at various times.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next one I have for you: what games have been added to the ISC Sports Network slate for basketball?
So we haven't released the basketball schedule yet. It is about to be released. It is 40 games on MyNDTV. It is the majority of the major events that happen during the course of the season. Like, for example, I'll tell you, we have coverage of the Sneakers for Santa in Brownsburg, the Tip-Off Classic, which is moving to Carmel because of renovations to Southport Fieldhouse. The Hall of Fame Classic, we'll have that. Phil Cox in Kokomo, Paul Logan at North Central. We're working on a few others. We'll have the Hendricks County Tournament Finals, as we've had every year from Danville. We'll have the Marion County Tournament Finals, which go to Speedway this year, again, because of issues with Southport. I will tell you this. I'll reveal this. Our first television game will be Tuesday, November the 24th, Zionsville at Carmel. That is our television opener for the season. And from that point in time on, I will probably have somewhere in the vicinity of about 60 or more high school basketball games that I will do during the course of the year.
Wow.
And we as ISC will have well over 100 high school games that we will do from a basketball standpoint.
Definitely. I cannot wait for that Zionsville Carmel game because it's Coach Weaver's first game as an Eagle. So it will be fun, that one. So back to the 25 teams I'm covering. Back to the 25 teams that I'm covering like for football this year. Like let me pull it up real quick. But the 25 teams I'm covering for football this year: Brownsburg, Carmel, New Pal, Ben Davis, Avon, Lafayette Harrison, Franklin Central, Lafayette Jeff, Whiteland, Plainfield, Decatur, South Putnam, Danville, Sullivan, Mooresville, Cascade, Martinsville, Terre Haute South, Tri West, Bloomington North, Franklin, Greenwood, Perry, like Monrovia, and Terre Haute North. But what teams from those uh, uh, should be listed like as underdogs?
So the teams that tripped a trigger in my head. Let's see how obviously Plainfield lost a lot, but Harper Baker Lands is really good and is going to be a Division I player. And how much of the load can he carry with a relatively new team completely around him? Terre Haute North is always good under Todd Wolfley and has some key pieces returning. Lost a couple players to graduation and had one go the prep school route in the younger of the Wren brothers, which I think kind of caught everybody by surprise.
Yes.
And then Decatur Central made the semi-state for the first time in school history this past season. I just saw Nash Sigmund play in the Genius Games, the all-star games that took place at the Indiana State Fairgrounds on Sunday, and he made 5 threes in the second half. So they lost a player or two, but have enough back at the guard position. And again, they're in the far southern sectional for 4A, which frankly is not the meat grinder that is the Pike group on the west side, that is the northeast side group, the LNLC North Central group, or the Hamilton County group. And so there's an opportunity there, I think, for Decatur Central potentially at least make it back to the regional round. So we'll see how it plays out. But of that group that you're covering, those are the 3 that immediately come to the front of my mind.
Now I do have to say that those are not the basketball teams I'm covering.
Okay.
The football ones.
Gotcha.
But I do agree with you. Like with Decatur, like with Decatur being up there, like in all those teams. One of the teams from football that I'm looking at right now that could be decent to watch, like, is Avon. Because
I think Avon is a team that, identified that top 6, Nick. They might be the best team outside of that group, and they played Brownsburg a really competitive game in the regular season last year and put a lot of points up on them. So if there is a group that might sneak up on some people, and again, maybe kind of bridge that gap from the Big Two to the rest of the league in the Hoosier Crossroads, Avon might be that team.
So another thing I'm doing now, so right now, like I have 4. So right now I have 4 games of the week that I have listed. I have the I have the Brownsburg game, like when they play like that Georgia team. I would say their their team name, but okay. Got it. But all right, the last question I have for you is, how has your time been this preseason for the Colts?
It's been a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun every year. Got one more game coming up against the Lions. Obviously, the game in and of itself wasn't exactly great in terms of playing the Falcons on Saturday. But again, that was without any starters, and the Colts starters fared much better against the Falcons in the preseason warmups or in the preseason practice. They had the scrimmages on Wednesday and Thursday. You'll see some starters for a limited amount of time, 1 series or 2, 8 to 12 plays, and again, there are guys that are going to be out injured. You're not going to see Daniel Jones. You're not going to see Jonathan Taylor. You're not going to see Alec Pierce. I'm curious if we'll see Keenan Allen. I'm curious if we'll see DeForest Buckner. Do we need to see a Quentin Nelson? Will Mallory, I think, is not a starter, but a guy that's going to make the team and played well in week 1. He's dealing with a thumb injury. So it's not – you're not going to see everybody, but you're going to see more than you have the first 2 weeks. And so getting the chance to call an NFL game is a thrill of a lifetime for me, even if it is a preseason game. Yeah. So I get one more, looking forward to it on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. Well, that would do it for today's Thundercast. Greg, thank you for joining, and I can't wait. I can't wait to hear all your calls like for the rest of the season, like for football and basketball, and I can't wait to see the other games. And but one last side note, I'm going to the Brownsburg game like this Friday.
Very
So
good. Well, give me a full report afterwards since I have HSE and North Central. Give me a full
yep,
update after the game. All right.
yep. It's